Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up. And today's video are alternate card ideas for the August 2023 Paper Pumpkin Kit Meaningful Flowers. I am actually late on this project, so my apologies, but better late than never. Now, if you're interested, I do have a free project sheet with the measurements for the cards and a list of the products used and things like that. You can click the link in the description below if you're interested in that. I'm also going to say if you like to see alternate projects from Paper Pumpkin, things like that, consider subscribing to my channel. Any interaction that you make, liking, commenting, sharing, anything like that goes a long way telling YouTube and me that you like what you're seeing so that I can make more of it and so that YouTube can actually send this out to more people. So in an alternate video like you're seeing here, I like to show the coordinating colors that they have listed from the kit. So you can find this on the instruction sheet that comes inside your monthly Paper Pumpkin subscription box. This is just all of the stamps in Pretty Peacock, which is the stamp color, the ink color that's in this month's kit. But we are going to be going over the coordinating colors in a little more detail later on. Now, I wanted to mention this right out of the gate. This little sponge dauber that you can put on your finger, the Paper Pumpkin team had showed that if you take this stamp and you just take a slightly darker color and ink it with the sponge dauber around the edges, you can achieve a look similar to what came with the die cuts, okay? So up to you. But I did not try that personally. I wanted to mention it because people were saying that they are having trouble stamping it. Now, before I jump into the alternates, I had to show you our upcoming Paper Pumpkin kit for October. This is home for the holidays. Oh my goodness, this kit is going to be fabulous. My recommendation is if you've never tried Paper Pumpkin, October is the perfect time to start. You can get a really nice jump on your Christmas card making with the October Paper Pumpkin kit. And the November kit is actually going to coordinate with it. Just looking at these stills that they came from the marketing team, oh my gosh, you're not going to want to miss this one. And it's going to coordinate with November, like I said. So you're going to get a good amount of material out of those two kits for your holiday projects this year. So make sure that you are subscribed by October 10th, 2023. I recommend not waiting because it's easy to forget. I have all of the information in the description box below to make sure that you get subscribed to Paper Pumpkin. If you, and I'm going to come back to the video here in just a minute, but if you are a prepaid person, you need to check on your subscription, make sure that you're active or current. If you skipped a month, if you canceled, come back for October. That is my personal recommendation because I just think that that kit is a knockout. I think it's going to be so much fun. Okay, so let's get started with our alternates. This is card number 1. What you see me doing here is I'm actually fussy cutting this little frog in our Stampin' Up! Masking paper. I just used the Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm actually going to be coloring these with my Stampin' Blends, which are alcohol markers, and the Memento ink is safe to use with alcohol markers, meaning it won't smear or smudge. So this little frog may look familiar to you. For those of you who have been subscribers in the past, or if you received the February 2023 Paper Pumpkin kit, this little frog was in that stamp set. This little frog also actually has a coordinating die. So I don't know if you remember, but we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. So this is just a piece of basic white paper, and I'm going to stamp this frog 3 times. And I'm going to stamp this frog with this lily pad. I'm going to call it a lily pad. If you guys know the actual real word for it, let me know, but that's just what I'm going to call it. That's what it reminds me of. This lily pad stamp comes in this month's, or I should say the August Paper Pumpkin kit. I'm not used to being this late coming out with my alternate videos. But when I saw that lily pad, my mind immediately went to this little frog. So I don't usually pull out past stamp sets for a current alternate project, but I know that many of you got this because the coordinating die for this little frog sold out. So I know that that month was a popular kit. So I just wanted to shout this out. But whatever little critter sets that you might have, or if you have a different frog stamp, or if you have any stamps that have like insects or butterflies or anything that's going to help with a scenic look, that's basically what I was going for here. So I ended up trimming this down. You can trim this down to whatever layer that you want. I think I trimmed it down to, it will be listed in the project sheet. I'm so sorry I don't have the measurements right next to me at this moment. Now, this is Crumb Cake Light that I'm coloring the bellies of the frogs with. And then this is Old Olive Dark that I decided to color the frog, like the body of the frog with. Now, I was going to be using a lot of greens and blue greens with this particular project. Okay, so the project that I'm starting here with is a mix of old and new, let's say. But my other three projects are more geared towards the kit. So if you're new here, let me just explain. Sometimes when I create alternate projects from a paper pumpkin kit, I will mix and match many different things, and sometimes I'll stay really close to the kit. This kit, I will say, is not my personal style. So one of the things when I am not loving the elements, you know, just the way that they're working together or the way that they were designed to go, I will usually change it. And, you know, sometimes I would say that's more rare for me than common. This is Shaded Spruce Dark, by the way, that I'm actually coloring the lily pad with. And I wanted that green to really stand out against the frog so that we had all of these different sort of colors of nature. But when I first took a look at the elements of the kit, when I was looking at the themes and the stamps and the sentiments and just trying to get like a feel for it, the tone of the kit, the tone and the messaging I felt were just a little bit too subdued for me. I wanted to add a little bit more pop of color, and I wanted to add a little bit more pop of like life or whimsy to the kit. If you like the kit exactly as it is, then you don't need to worry about anything. You could just, you know, make the cards as they come in the kit according to the paper pumpkin instructions. But it can be really fun to get into some alternate ideas. And with these 4 cards, I really feel like I captured what I wanted to capture from the kit, but also kind of geared more towards themes that I personally like better for the elements that were in the kit, if that makes any sense at all. So I know that it was supposed to be about the meaning of the flowers. You know, the focus was on the flowers, the forget-me-nots and the lotus flower. But I can't say that I'm like a big botanical person. I love florals. I love flowers. But I don't have like a heavy focus on that. Like when I'm doing my crafting, I usually kind of mix and match it with other things. And sometimes it's just like a set of dies, and sometimes it's little characters like we see here. So I'm going to be bringing in characters again, as part of the theme of this kit. Now, this is the Lost Lagoon combo, the Stampin' Blends combo. So if you buy Stampin' Blends from us, they typically come in combo packs, a light and a dark of that particular shade. So this is Lost Lagoon. And what I was trying to do with Lost Lagoon was create those sort of circle rings. They have these impressions, these like circle rings all throughout the imagery and the art of this set. And so I kind of needed to recreate that because I was stamping my own lily pads and things like that. So that's what I was going for. And then I came in with Pool Party Dark. And now I'm just trying to sort of get it all together. So when I was growing up, there was a cemetery that had a pond in it. Now, I grew up in a city, so I wasn't likely to be around a lot of areas that had ponds, but I was very fortunate to grow up around the cemetery, which was very, very large, a lot of acreage, and a lot of nature scenery, and it had this really beautiful pond. And this is kind of what the color of the pond looked like in its better days. And then, of course, it got a little bit brownish, but I don't want to color brown on my card. So that was the inspiration for this, I just love the idea of these little frogs, because when you if you look around lily pads and you look around the edge of a pond, you see all these little tadpoles, right? There's tons of frogs and tadpoles. So I thought, I'm going to create this theme. I think that this will be really cute. Now, they had these vellum pockets that came with the kit. And there's also a thin adhesive that comes in the kit. And that adhesive was meant to be used to create this pocket. But I don't know why I did it in a horizontal format. So I actually kind of had to extend this layer. So you kind of do see a little bit of a line there, but I just thought it was pretty subtle. So I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. But you could also do this in a vertical layer and not, just change the way that the frogs are sitting, so that it's not wide. And then you won't have to cut two of these. But I knew I was not going to use the kit for the way that these Paper Pumpkin team had designed the cards. I knew I was going to turn this into something else. So I had no problem, cutting things up and doing all of that. So I knew I wasn't going to use it for pockets, but that's what they recommend. Now, one thing that I had done off camera, we have this like distressed 3D embossing folder. Again, I'll have everything listed on the project sheet. It's part of the Autumn suite in our new mini catalog. It's really beautiful. So I cut apart one of the Orchid Oasis card bases and I embossed it with that folder, but I had done that off screen. There were things that I thought I had recorded, but wasn't actually recording. So I apologize about that, but they were all very minor. So you won't miss anything. I used Orchid Oasis to stamp the sentiment, and the sentiment comes from this month's kit. I'm using a basic white A2 size card base. So that's 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to use the Orchid Oasis piece as one of the layers. And then I'm going to bring in these little lily pads. Now, if you want to have fun with this, you could always do this in an unusual direction. You know what I mean? Just make it more of a pattern. But I did actually want this to kind of capture sort of that feel of water and flow and lily pads, even though the color is different from what I colored. I still thought it would be a nice touch with my card. So I decided to trim these down. I think it was just about 1.25 inches for each one of these. And then I just tried to make it as seamless as possible. Now, when you're putting adhesive on vellum, it can show through. So I used just those little adhesive dots that come in the kit. And I found that you couldn't really see them that well because the vellum is dark in certain sections with the little lily pads. I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be absolutely fine, So it just so happens I do not have the Pretty Peacock Stampin' Blends yet. And I was sort of kicking myself that I did not have them. But you could do the same thing that I just stamped, but in watercolor if you would prefer. And that would be a really nice tone and feel, with this particular kit. I feel like this is my last hurrah for summer cards, these alternate projects. I have been so overwhelmed with Connor's transition back to school, and then with everything happening with the mini catalog. And of course, everything happening with the mini catalog has been very exciting, but there was so much going on. I just could not meet my typical timeline for my alternates for my August kit. So I appreciate your patience with me as I sort of found the time to finally make it happen. But yeah, so depending on what you use, I should have just used the adhesive that came in the kit for the vellum, but I just used my little adhesive dots. So it's up to you. So I felt like by the time these pieces came together, it was kind of a continuous flow from the vellum to the Orchid Oasis. We have some nice texture there with that background. Of course, you don't have to emboss it. It would just look smooth like the vellum does. but it's up to you. Now, I'm going to be bringing in coordinating color products from the annual catalog, or maybe the mini catalog, just depending. And this is the In Color Twine. So the 2022-2024 In Color Collection twine. So you get all 5 colors, with the twine, and Orchid Oasis is one of them. Just a mention here that's good to know, and I did actually use on another alternate card. I wrapped that 3 times, by the way. Is the Tahitian Tide, which is a coordinating color in this kit, is also in the twine in that pack, and I did use it. So that's a great little alternate product to mix and match in with this particular kit, in my opinion. Now, this kit did come with a natural, a very thin sort of natural twine, but there's not that much of it. I did use it on one of the alternate cards, so you'll get a look at it. But whatever twine you happen to have on hand, and I think, many colors would go with this, but it's so nice when you have the actual coordinating colors. One of my absolute favorite things, and one of my go-to things when I get stuck on designing or working with a kit, right? So I would love to tell you that I 100% absolutely adore every single kit I get. I would say it's probably about 98%. Overall, throughout the year, I love the kits, and they usually hit right on themes that work for me. And then there's maybe just one kit or 1 or 2 kits a year that it's not my personal style. And so I just sort of change the theme a little bit or change the tone and just sort of make it my own. So what you see me doing here is these are all 1/2 by 4 inch strips of coordinating color cardstock. Tahitian Tide, Garden Green, Melon Mambo. I did substitute Lemon Lolly instead of Crushed Curry, which is the color that's listed under coordinating colors on the instruction sheet. Misty Moonlight, I ended up not using. You kind of see it off to the side there. Orchid Oasis, Bubble Bath, which is that very light pink. And so I just kind of did them in a pattern. Now, there were a few more, I think, coordinating colors than that, but this was the combination of colors that I liked for this card. So again, this is an A2 basic white card base. So I'm bringing in my own card base here. I'm bringing in my own coordinating color cardstocks here. It's totally up to you. You might just want to do 1 or 2 colors. You might want to do like just a solid layer. But I really like color blocking, and I really, really loved the color combination that they chose for this kit. I thought it was a perfect end of summer sort of color combo that they chose. Like, I loved the layout, but when I looked at all of the pieces and all of the elements of the kit, like, that didn't stand out to me. It didn't stand out to me until I had stamped all of the coordinating colors. So that's why I wanted to do at least one alternate card where it's almost like standout, where you're seeing, wow, look at all of these colors, right? So I'm not sure if that's your style. Now, you could have some fun with this. You could actually glue all of these onto a layer and then maybe cut it with like your deckled edge rectangle dies, or you could do like banner punches along the end. You could always stamp a pattern over top of all of these once you have them all together. You could have a lot of fun with this. I kept it really clean and basic. So now I'm bringing in that floral stamp that came with the August kit. I am going to stamp this in Memento Tuxedo Black ink as well, because I'm going to be bringing in my coordinating colors again in the Stampin' Blends. This is the Scalloped Contour dies, and what I was trying to do was just kind of get a feel for my layout. There was a lot of yellow in this kit, and I thought a lot of really cheerful yellow. And even though they listed Crushed Curry as the coordinating yellow on the instruction sheet, I was really seeing more Lemon Lolly and more Daffodil Delight. Like, I was seeing kind of like softer, warmer yellows. So I decided to take this one card base and cut it up, and I wanted to make that my layer because, again, I really wanted that kind of brightness and that color to show through. So this is the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Now, one thing that I want to say is when you get a paper pumpkin kit, if you're new to paper pumpkin, you don't need tools like this. You don't have to worry about dies. You don't have to worry about any machines. All of the pieces that come in the kit are typically consumable pieces aside from the ink and the stamp pads that you get. But, you know, all of that can just be popped right out. You don't have to worry about cutting anything. When we get into alternates, like I'm working on here, I almost always bring in tools and coordinating color items. I'm using my own clear blocks. We have a clear block bundle. So if you've used a couple of paper pumpkin kits and you're really loving, you know, stamping and you're stamping on a more regular basis and you want more than just the one block that came in your first paper pumpkin kit, I highly recommend those. I stamp weekly, so of course that works for me, but you might not need that many. You could always buy your clear blocks individually as well. Now, I just stamped the sentiment in Melon Mambo, and now I'm coming in with Granny Apple Green Dark, and I'm just going to do all of the greenery on this particular flower or this particular plant in the same color green. So I'm not doing any tricky blending or anything like that. I'm literally just coloring it in. And even though I don't think any plant would have multicolor flowers in this way, where one flower is purple and one flower is pink and one flower is blue, I just went for it. For me, it was more about creative license to coordinate with the background than it was about botanical accuracy. Because if I'm being honest, I can't really tell you much about that. Now, the kit tells you, so if you do want to incorporate that, you can, but it just really wasn't my vibe. So I just decided to change it a little bit. So far we've used Orchid Oasis and Flirty Flamingo. So Orchid Oasis Light, Flirty Flamingo Dark. This is Tahitian Tide, the combo pack. I'm using a little bit of light and a little bit of dark. I'm coming in and doing the centers in that small flower in Daffodil Delight Dark. And I meant to grab light Orchid Oasis up here, but I accidentally grabbed dark and then I just kept going with it. And then, what was my last one? My last flower, I think that's Flirty Flamingo Dark again. Yes, it is, because I used Flirty Flamingo Light a little bit later on the rabbit. But I loved the way that this looked. I thought this was great. Sometimes I worry if it's not on white, you know, that you're not going to get like the full color look, but I thought this really looked fabulous. So we have this metallic woven ribbon in our 2022-2024 in colors as well. This doesn't come as a pack of 5. You can purchase the individual colors. So this is Orchid Oasis, and I decided to try my hand at just wrapping it one time and putting a bow on there, and it never works for me. It just never works for me. So I decided to wrap it first and then tie a bow and add the bow as a separate element. You can see on the back there, the writing, the definition of the flowers and things like that. It just wasn't for me. The other thing that I wasn't doing well with was the positioning of this, ribbon. So I ended up putting it one notch lower. One of the things that I love about the scallop circle, or not scallop circles, the scallop contour dies, is that those little notches is usually where I put my twine, or my ribbon. I'm talking too fast. But I just added a little glue dot with this ribbon to kind of keep it secure and just to kind of keep it in place. But I did end up moving this ribbon, and this was basically me being fussy, but I just really felt like it didn't look right. So I think when it happens to us where it's like just not matching up with our eye, that's one of my favorite things about putting the adhesive on the back, because if you need to reposition it, you can. And to me, that looks so much better. So much better, because you don't lose the coloring that you just did. So anyway, that's my thought process behind that. And then I'm just going to pop this rectangle up on dimensionals, and we're going to add it center to our card. You can position it wherever, you know, it fits your eye. But I tend to put things center. I do try to put them like off to the side sometimes, but it just doesn't always work out for me the way that I want it to. Now, one thing that came in this kit that I absolutely adored are these clear dots. Raise your hand if you love putting clear dots on projects. I do, especially projects that have like a water theme to them. Oh my goodness. I don't know. It just really adds this little touch, like just elevates it a little bit. So we got a good amount of them in this paper pumpkin kit, and I loved them. I think I used them on almost every card, but I love the way this card turned out. So not a difficult card to make. Just use the coordinating colors that you have on hand. One of the great things about paper pumpkin is there's usually anywhere between, 4 and 8 coordinating colors, so that even if you don't have one, you might have another one, you might have one or two, and you could always do something fun with that in terms of color blocking as well. Don't feel like you need to have them all, right? So I'm just adding those clear little dots, and that's it for this card. And I love, love, love the way that it turned out, and I hope that you liked it too. And again, I'll have everything on the project sheet, but this was a very straightforward card with the measurements. Okay, going into our next card, I actually needed my full size Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine because of the size of the die that I'm using. This is the Darling Details die. If you watch me on a regular basis, you have seen me use this bundle about 15 times. I cannot stop using it, and this alternate is no exception. So this card base is Azure Afternoon. This cut is 4 1/4 by 11, and then it's actually scored at 5.5 inches. So this one opens a little differently. Now this is Daffodil Delight cardstock, I believe. I don't think I used crushed curry on this. I would have to double check myself, but I had to run that Darling Details die through twice. Once in yellow, once in white, so that I could get the inside and the outside. You have to cut it in 2 passes for that. And then this is a die cut that came in the kit. This is the die cut of the Forget-Me-Nots. And then I wanted to put this longer sentiment on this particular card. So I was just trying to find my positioning between where I didn't know if I wanted to have like a banner and then have it overlap the flowers, or if I wanted to leave the flowers alone. This is Tahitian Tide ink. I just decided to stamp it straight across the top. That was like ultimately what I decided. And I knew I was going to pop the flowers up on dimensionals and kind of drop it down a little bit. And what I decided to do was kind of do that wrapped bouquet look at the bottom with the Tahitian Tide twine, that in color twine. So I'm literally just adhering this to the card with glue. Now I had card bases already cut in Azure Afternoon, which is why I chose that blue. But if you have Tahitian Tide, which is technically the color that goes with the kit, or Misty Moonlight would be another really good background with that particular bouquet, then I would say use those colors. Don't feel like you have to use that, but I love the pop of Azure Afternoon. I thought it actually ended up looking really great with the Tahitian Tide and with the different color blues that we have here. Now here's the Tahitian Tide woven metallic ribbon, and I thought it was just a little too much, a little too, too much razzle dazzle for this card. This card felt a little bit more delicate and a little bit more like quiet, pretty floral. So I just decided to wrap it. It just looked like a bouquet. It looked like it had just been picked. And I was like, I'm just going to do this the way that you would probably get it, if somebody handed it to you. So that was what I decided to do. I wrapped it a few times at the bottom, and then I used the adhesive dots to kind of hold that in place, because I knew I was going to put the whole thing up on dimensionals, but totally up to you. So I cannot recommend the Darling Details bundle enough. I think it's going to be such a workhorse throughout the year, holidays and all occasions alike. And I actually questioned myself. I thought maybe I shouldn't use this again, because I think I used it on another alternate, but I cannot help myself. I just love it that much. And I thought the delicate details of Darling Details went perfectly with what they were trying to portray with this kit. While that isn't my overall personal style, it's always nice to have a bouquet card, right? I mean, that's a great thing that you can have on hand. But I also wanted this kit to be a little bit more playful, which is why I went with the theme that I did with my alternates. Now I did the same thing. I tied my bow separately. I'm adding it with a glue dot. You could do your adhesive dots too if you want to. For me, if I want to get that bow right, I just kind of have to do it this way. There are so many people who are talented tying bows. I am not one of them. So there is that. And then we are going to pop a couple of those clear embellishments on this as well. And there we go. Just a pretty, darling, delicate floral card. And then you could put the forget-me-not thing on the inside of the card if you would want to. Okay, so now we're coming up on my personal favorite alternate. I had a lot of fun playing with the elements of this particular card layout. And this was ultimately what I was trying to do and what I was trying to change like with this kit. So for me, when I'm designing cards, a lot of time it's just about the feeling. It's about the feeling of the card or a memory or something that it reminds me of. And I just wanted to bring the characters back in. So this is a lemon lolly card base. This is a melon mambo layer. And then I'm just trimming a little bit off of the bottom of the layer from the August Paper Pumpkin kit. So this was a pre-printed layer. And my challenge with the pre-printed layer and me wanting to add to the scene was how I was going to do that and make it look what felt seamless. Okay, so personally, I love this color combination, these layers with this particular card. This was like, I thought this came together so beautifully. Okay, and so now I'm bringing in something called Playing in the Rain. So this is a stamp set that's available in our annual catalog, and there's also a coordinating set of dies as well. This is just what all of the dies look like when they're cut out. I think it's just easier to show it this way. And then can you see that little small set of dies that I have tucked into that envelope? Those are called the Sunshine and Smiles dies. And there is our little frog die. This was the very first die set that they came out with as an add-on to a Paper Pumpkin stamp set. And everybody went crazy for it. So I was excited to bring this back out and show this to you guys again. I just use them is what I'm saying. So when we get these pieces that we can actually use again and again and again, I feel like it really lends itself well to the August kit if you have those sitting around and you have some leftover pieces. Now, even though we used our frog on a prior set, I wanted to show you if you wanted to die cut your frogs and pop them on your lily pads, your stamped lily pads, instead of doing the masking like I did, you could easily do that. And sometimes when I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with a project, I will just start getting pieces out and literally popping them into the scene, popping them onto the card. Do I like it? Don't I like it? Does the measurement look right? Like, does the perspective look right? And, you know, just based on that, it will help me. It'll guide me through sort of the ultimate design process. So the two characters that I knew that I wanted to use were the bunny and the turtle. So I pulled out the outline dies that will cut those out. Then I pulled out the little grassy dies and the bridge dies. I can tell you guys just right now, I ended up not using the grass or the bridge, but those were the dies that I wanted to kind of play with and see. So I'm just getting a piece of basic white and I'm going to do a little bit of stamping here. So we're going to stamp our turtle. We're going to stamp our bunny. Again, I'm going to stamp a Memento Tuxedo Black because I am going to be using my Stampin' Blends for this particular alternate. I wanted the colors to feel like they coordinated in some way. And even though Lost Lagoon wasn't listed as a coordinating color, I felt like it went. Like I felt like it did well with that set since I didn't have the Pretty Peacock, the Stampin' Blends and Pretty Peacock. Okay, so my table at this point was just getting completely littered with stuff. I just kept pulling in more and more things. I had piles all around me. So I decided to bring my mini machine back in because my table is very narrow. And if I could use the mini, I prefer that. over the full-size machine. It's just very awkward to film with the full size on this particular table where I work. So I just pulled the mini back out and I just started cutting these things with the mini. I cut the bridge, but I ended up not using the bridge. So I just wanted to mention that for anybody who's following along with me. And with our little turtle, we are going to do something so clever. And I'm also going to do something that I do not recommend that you guys do. So I will mention that as well. So again, I'm just cutting these out in basic white. With the bunny, I wanted to do minimal coloring. So I decided to keep the bunny white in terms of the color of the fur. And I did do just, a couple of hints of gray, and we'll see that coming up here in a minute. But with our turtle, do you see how he's holding that daisy? We're actually going to change that. Now, let me walk you through some options, and you can decide what's best for your alternates. You can use the lily pad from the stamp set if you want to, and I'm using the Pretty Peacock, the Stampin' Spot that comes inside the kit for this month. So I just stamped 2 of these, and the reason that I stamped them is because from a perspective or sizing standpoint, I wanted to see if the turtle and the rabbit could stand on this and it look cute. Now, when you stamp the rabbit, I think when you stamp the rabbit, you can stamp a puddle, but if you die cut the rabbit, the puddle doesn't cut out with him. I think there's a separate puddle die cut in there. But you can see they fit perfectly. Okay. Now here's your other option. And in terms of perspective, I preferred this over the stamped lily pad. If you don't mind cutting up an envelope, okay, these lily pads look seamless because they're printed just like the layer, but from a perspective standpoint, meaning it's closer to us, it's a larger lily pad and our characters can stand on it and it looks like a seamless. The color is very, very slightly different, but once your character is standing on it, you wouldn't really notice. And it's okay if it comes off of the edge because some of the other lily pads do too. So you can see how, it almost looks like a spotlight. That was really cool. So you could do this other like medium-sized one over on the other side. Now, even though this isn't what I ultimately went with for my card, I really wanted to show this to you because this is such a cool way to use these envelopes if you want to use your layers for a card like this. And even if you don't want to put the characters on them, you could still bring that in closer and put your sentiment up on the top, okay? So the first option is stamping. The second option is, fussy cutting from the envelope, the lily pad. Now here's the third option, and this is the option that I went with. This is a die cut from the kit. There's actually a bunch of these. And it's beautifully colored. And because it's a little bit closer to us, it's bigger. So again, in terms of perspective, I was like, you know what? I actually really like this. I like the way that this looks. And because there's a lily pad in front and a lily pad in the back, I was like, I think that this would be great positioning for our little characters here. I did not mind that the character was going to overlap with the flower because to me, the flower wasn't the centerpiece. I know it is the centerpiece of the original kit, but for this one, it's the characters that I think really make the scene with the beautiful artwork of the water and the lily pads and the lotus flowers. So this was the ultimate layout that I chose to go with. I chose to go with the large lotus die cut from the kit because I felt like it matched those background flowers and our layers and everything for the card really perfectly. But right now, the thing that's sort of standing out and glaring is our little characters in white. So we have to sort of bring some color to them and make them look a little more seamless. It's okay if they stand out, but a little more seamless. Now I'm grabbing another layer. And I am going to fussy cut that smallest lotus flower. And we're going to swap out that daisy for the lotus flower. So we're going to do that towards the end here once we have everything colored. The reason that you're seeing this glitching is because for some reason when I was recording, I record these on Facebook sometimes. I was not live. This is pre-recorded. I could not go live with this. It would have taken 4 hours. This is Lost Lagoon again. I'm starting with dark. For some reason, I kept grabbing my dark markers by accident, and I was like, it's no big deal. I'll just switch to light. So that's what I did. And I'll go through these colors like as we're sort of going along and coloring in these characters. But do you see how well it goes with that lily pad in the front that he's going to be standing on? So this is Flirty Flamingo Light. And I use just a little bit of it on his nose and on the insides of his ears. And now I'm bringing in Smoky Slate Light, and I'm just outlining the lines that the artists created for this stamp. And I'm going to bring in my color lifter to blur it. So a color lifter can help you soften a color, lighten it, that type of thing. When it comes to having like a white furry animal and I don't want to do full on technique color, I just want to kind of, like do like a little cheat sheet version. I just bring in the color lifter, which has that white cap there, and I just blur all the gray. And to me, it just looks more natural. It just looks like a soft shadow, and that he's a bunny with white fur. And now I'm just going back in with the dark Lost Lagoon, and I'm just adding a little bit of detail, just a little bit of outline and a little bit of detail. And doesn't he just fit in perfectly now? I just think he's such a cutie. Now, what I should have done was I should have added some shadow underneath his foot, but I didn't do it. So something for you guys if that's what you want to do. I'm also using Lost Lagoon to color in the body and the head of my turtle. And then his little shell, the belly of his shell is going to be the Daffodil Delight combo. And then his outer shell was a little bit complicated for me. I really wanted Pretty Peacock, but I didn't have it. So I kept trying to think of like, what could I do to substitute it? And I ended up just using the ink with a water painter. And boy, that was such a mistake. So, don't do that. If you're using Memento ink, that's for the blends. That's not for anything with water. But my camera cut off, so you didn't get to see me filming it. I'm just dabbing off the water here. It got really blurry. I mean, we made it through. I used Lost Lagoon Dark on the shell, and then on the spots, I tried to use Pretty Peacock, but blends and water are not supposed to go together. So don't do that unless you're hiding half of his body like I'm about to hide him. So we got away with it, but it's definitely not something I would do on a regular basis. Now, again, because I know I'm not going to be conserving, the elements of this particular kit, I didn't mind cutting that apart. I'll probably use, those lily pads and those backgrounds on something else, or I'll just put this kit aside, one or the other. But we're just going to take a little bit of that daisy off so that it's not popping up behind the lotus. I wanted it to look seamless. So we're going to get a little bit more into our positioning now. Here's that adhesive, by the way, if you want it for the pockets. I just wanted to mention that because sometimes I forget what's in the kit. These banners came from the kit. It's a perfect fit for the longer stamp. The one that says you rise above the rest or something like that. So I thought that was fabulous. I'm using Pretty Peacock ink here, the one from the kit, to stamp this. And then this is where we're going to use that twine that came in the kit. So this twine is a really nice touch with these cards, I do have to say. It was a really soft look, but it adds a little bit of texture. It just added a nice look, I thought, here. Now, the blank space at the top is where I wanted to put my sentiment. If you want to put it at the bottom, or you just want to put it on the inside and just, leave the outside alone, that's fine. But I actually thought this was like perfect positioning. I was really happy with the way that this looked. I wrapped that 3 times, but again, I didn't mind using up my twine because I'm not going to be making a ton of these cards. So you might want to just do 1 round of twine if you're planning on making a whole set. And now I'm just going to add these layers together first. We're going to pop that banner up on dimensionals. And we're also going to pop the lotus flower up on dimensionals as well. And then our characters are going to kind of sort of be glued and kind of sort of be on dimensionals, just depending on where their body hits. So I'll try to walk you through that too for anybody who's crafting along with me or who's also kind of going with this particular theme. So I decided to put the dimensionals on first and then pop my turtle in the background. And then just to kind of compensate for the adhesive that's now missing where the turtle is, I put a little bit of Stampin' Seal Plus there. I'm putting a couple of the adhesive dots on that daisy, and that's where we're going to pop our lotus flower right onto his hand there. And is that seamless? I thought that looked so cute. And I mean, I know that's a very small detail, but for me, that's what matters with the cards. So he's just kind of playing around and holding a lotus flower. I did pop a dimensional behind his head, so he was coming up off of the card a little bit in the background. And then our little bunny rabbit, half of his body, both feet, have the adhesive on it. But where his ear is, I would recommend putting a mini dimensional there. I don't think in the end I ended up doing it, but just to give him a little extra security in that area, I would put a little mini dimensional right behind his ear. That would fit really well, or just cut a regular dimensional from this kit in half. And now this was where I wasn't sure if I should do this or not, but I decided to go ahead and do it. I added a bunch of these little clear dots, and I just kind of scattered them all throughout and in between the lily pads. You do not have to do this. I just really wanted to add like an element of shine so that everything seems watery and wet and dimensional. I hope that you enjoyed these alternate August projects. You can grab that free project sheet in the description box below. Thank you for your patience. I was a little bit late getting this out, but better late than never, right? Okay, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. So grateful to have you here. Bye-bye.